Oh, Rich, I see that you're.
Hey, Martin. Martin, I don't know if you're on mute. I can't hear
No,
you.
I was on mute, and now I should be back.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, good. So how are things going?
Okay. I've got some workers here putting in a new kitchen floor, so you may hear some banging and commotion. So I'll try
No
to
worries.
mute. I'll try to mute more than normal. So mind that.
No problem. Since we started this a long time ago, there were some sessions that were better and others are worse, and then doesn't really matter for me. Okay, I can give you an update of the Credentilix. Currently, we are caught by technical problems because we want to use the tokens as a key to the data rooms, and then that seems to be more difficult than it seems that we thought in the beginning. And yeah, so that's it. And also, I find that in Singapore, the good inventors, they not only have their own projects, but currently there are also people looking after people who can make things work, and which means that there is some competition going on for good innovators, I would say. Yeah. And that reduces a bit the motivation to put your work time into one project if there are other rabbits out there to catch. But it's only an impression. So you would assume that if you can sell something, then you would go immediately and fill out all the opportunities that are there and test them out and check what you can sell. But I mean, it's also a good test because as a founder of a startup company or a business idea, then this is where we started, right? Most founders have no intention to sell at all. They just want to see the idea working. And so we should be prepared for founders still having the means to sell, but not using them because the technical work on the project is more rewarding for them immediately.
Yeah, I would think that that's all accurate.
Yeah.
I
So
think it'll be interesting to see how this platform matures. Um, it's quite an idea. So hopefully it turns out to be something for you.
yeah, because we were always assuming that people want their companies to be successful, right? But that was an assumption. And but fact is that 80% of the founders have no intention whatsoever to make profit or make their company working. That's where I started my observation that most inventors have no intention to earn money with their invention. They just want to see it working. And the platform should somehow also have such cases. And yeah, and the question is now how to separate the ones that work from the ones that do not work. And if you test it at an early stage, then so was the hypothesis. Then you could keep the ones that would be successful separate from the ones that would not be successful. And that was the intention, right? So that you see from the sales that they have, the pre-sales or not, whether this is a good project to invest in or not, or a product that is wanted by the market.
I think you're gonna end up with a filter. That's going to be, you're going to have to go through that filter for every project that comes in that wants to be included, and get the feedback from the entrepreneur or team or whatever, and go through that filter and answer the questions in the filter that then guide you as to, okay, they should be included or not. I think it's going to be pretty binary in that regard. As far as a result, the of course there's different gradients and radiations across the questions, but I think you're going to end up with a go, no go, kind of a tool there to make that judgment.
Yes, and best as early as possible, right? Even during onboarding before they become public. And
Oh, no. I mean, even to get considered to become part of Credentialix, you need to
yes,
do that.
yes,
Because you don't want to be spending time and effort on something that is just somebody's hobby, right?
yes. Of course, they should earn money, and that's why there would be some upfront payment expected, and more and more and more. So, it's a bit like how to say. Today, I had an interesting conversation with a very successful founder, a Bavarian, who went to the US in 1996. He's today 62 years old. So, age 32, he went to the US to be the local general manager of a German company working near Atlanta, I believe. Yeah. And he was very successful. Today, he runs his own company, 120 employees. They have 30 million US dollars revenue per year, and is active in 10 different countries of this world. Is in plastic manufacturing, plastic materials for manufacturing. So it's a trading house and the R&D for developing new mixtures of plastic. And because we were sitting together, and a friend of mine, her daughter is now finishing her studies, and she is thinking, what should she become? And I said, oh, I would consider sales. And he said, no. First, you need to find out, do you really want to work, or is it just that you want to have the money and spend the time there? And I found it quite funny because it's a interesting perspective. So you need to find out for yourself, do you want to put in the effort and work from 8 to 12 hours a day for 6 days a week? Or is it that you just want to work from 8:30 or 9 until 11 a.m., he says. And he has seen cases where people only wanted to work for 2 hours a day and not more than that. And then if you're that kind of person, then you should become a government official, at least in Germany, because then you don't need to work so much. So I was surprised to see that thought in such clarity. And the same also applies to the founders, right? A bit.
Yeah, for sure. But founders are going to work 6-7 days a week, probably 7, and they're going to work. They may work lighter hours on Saturday and Sunday, but during the week they're working. I mean, when I did my startup in Connecticut, and I mean, we were a restart really, of a particular technology, but when we did that, I mean, we were working, from, like you said, 8 to 8, and and at 8 o'clock, you didn't want to be the first one to leave. So,
Yes.
there's a little bit of a stigma with that, right? Unless you had something going on and, you'd leave earlier. But, I mean, we were there sometimes until 10 o'clock every night. And, on Saturdays and Sundays now, we did have the office closed on Saturday and Sunday, but, I was in there certainly Saturdays and then Sunday, in there just to do some personal work. and, you know, for at least a couple hours on Sundays. So, you know, but if you're an Elon Musk, you know, you're working 7 days and you're working, you know, 12, 14, 16 hours a day.
Yes. And those 14, 16 hours being very efficient, not wasting time at all. And
Yeah,
most
you know, I question that. I mean, everybody says that, but you know, everyone gets to a point where, you know, you spend an hour just goofing off, in some way, right? Um, or at least in a more relaxed, non, maybe it's still at work, but you're, you know, in a cafe or something for an hour and just, you know, either thinking or, which is work. I don't disagree with that, but, um, or planning or something like that. But, you
Mhm.
know, you're in a different environment for, you know, for some time, you know, a couple times a day, just to get out of the, you know, the office or lab environment or whatever your situation is.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I don't know how he spends his time, but I heard that he slept in the Twitter headquarter when he took over, and spent nights there sleeping on a mattress on the office floor. And I found that when I heard that, I found it quite unusual for a billionaire. And he's not only
Yeah,
doing that, but
yeah, but he does that everywhere, I think. Um, I don't think that's very uncommon for him. I mean, that's a holdover from, you know, his PayPal days, right? And you know, that type of thing. So
okay. Yeah, but I mean, there must you give some orientation of where things are going, right, and heading. And for the younger generation like Joe here, um, I believe, yeah, I also told my son that at very already 10 years ago that when he will enter the workforce, there would be a lack of laborer, but people who do the work ultimately. So I believe today there are so much opportunities out there because the jobs out there without end. So appears to me, and yeah, so that's a sign of the times, and people who become self-employed are very much attracted into employments, I would say, as an opportunity or as an alternative or option to choose from, and that's important. To I believe it is important to take into account when it's about how to develop new companies, and insofar also for Credentilix, because who would be the ones who still want to be self-employed and founders when there are much better paid options out there as an employee?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think some people think that, you know, being an entrepreneur is, you know, lots of glory and lots of,
Yes, and it's not, no.
no, it's, I mean, to truly do it right. I mean,
My
there's,
community loves to add in you have to be a little delusional in order to want to be an entrepreneur. Or the other term that comes up often, oddly, is faith. You have to have
Uh-huh.
faith that your product is going to become something that's real that isn't today.
yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, Joe. But I also think that, you know, when you're an entrepreneur that, um, you know, you've got this vision of, you know, what this product could be, whether it's, like in my case, software, hardware, you know, kind of product, or just a software product or just a piece of hardware. And, you know, and you think it has a spot in the market, and you drive towards that, and possibly have some pivots along the way, but you still have a vision for where this thing can fit, and what it can mean. And I think that's, I mean, for me, that was very powerful, right? In helping me continue to drive me, on a daily basis, right? And you need that. And I think some entrepreneurs, sort of get into it, they're going to try it on, entrepreneurship, they're going to try it on, right? And, see what it feels like, and tell everybody, yeah, and I'm an entrepreneur. But, are they investing in it, right? How much did they put in, right? And I mean, that's where the real difference is, right? In my opinion, that's one of the singular beginning differences, is how much you put in. And I mean dollars. I'm not talking about time. Everybody can put in sweat equity, but you got to put dollars into your vision. And how much are you willing to do it? In my case, I put in, over $400,000.
Oh, yeah.
So
Interesting that you say that I put in. I mean, I talked about this today. 6 years ago, or almost 7, I tried to set up a new type of law firm, something that can be scaled. That was my idea, because a law firm as itself is very difficult to scale. It then would look more like an army structure than something that can grow organically. And when I say grow organically, it means that if you take in more business, it doesn't necessarily mean that you end up with more work, as a network effect, a positive feedback loop. So I'm setting up something completely new. And if you count everything together, that's about the amount that I put into that project for the past 7 years. And I see now the first signs of a flywheel, the first signs over the past week or so. I saw that there's something going on that reinforces itself without me acting. That's all. But it took me 6 years to get there. And yeah, some people say that that was an open heart surgery, what I've done on myself. And
yeah.
but I can see that it works, and I see positive feedback effects, because yeah, there are clients who like that way of operating a patent firm, and I can see that it gets more, but is still weak. And you need to have a lot of faith, Joe, in your language, in order to see that. So the old traditional business gets less and less, and the new one, which is more standardized, becomes more and more. And I can see that this works. There's a need, and the AI was not something that changed everything. That was not the root cause of the change, but it helps us to become more efficient and do the same thing faster. So if you read the Good to Great book, then I believe we have there's a good to great structure there. What is missing is the real breakthrough that would come when the whole thing becomes a high-speed flywheel, to remain in the allegory that Jim Collins is using. Yeah.
I keep thinking about the 5 different generations of a business. The first one being you finally document what needs to be done, so that way you can hand it to an employee.
Uh-huh.
And the 5th one being you add in robotics to do the things that were already being done.
And the 3 in between are what?
I can't even remember. That's the problem. But it always reminds me of the 5th one being more like a multi-generational company.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
and to do those kind of the AI might help condense the as you call it, the freedom to operate, taking
Yes.
less time to achieve freedom to operate. But the freedom to operate, let's say, is probably 4 times as hard as it was 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
but the
just the
competition,
barrier of entry of the freedom to operate has started higher.
is they may not even be aware of that barrier or that the freedom to operate hurdle they need to take. And that would then be the moat around your business ultimately. That's the idea of network effects. To be the first one there. Have a blue ocean, find it, and then put some netting around so that the sharks cannot come in, the other sharks, and you're the only shark in the blue ocean. That's the idea. And but what I can say, the automation and robotics is only a means to the objective, and but not the root cause of change, which is it starts with people, it starts with processes. So hiring the right people, I find, is important because if you have the wrong people, then they would destroy more than what they bring in. And ultimately, the ones who bring in most get frustrated if they realize that they have to carry others on their back. So looking back, the biggest reason
You mean like
yes,
being in a class project where some of the participants don't do anything?
yeah, sure. You find the same in companies a lot. And those people appear busy, but they don't contribute. And then the most important duty of the founder is to get rid of those guys as soon as possible, as soon as they're identified, which is difficult in some countries because of the law. But
And the most
ultimately,
valuable thing about your company is the people that are working it and the fact that
yes,
they have a salary and the fact that your overhead can actually afford to pay them a salary and assuming that the flow of the company finds value in that person sitting in a chair that contributes to the workflow.
yes, yeah,
But still very valuable at getting rid of the people that don't do anything.
yeah. I believe that's the most important thing. And hire only people that are proactive.
I think it's, I think that sort of goes back to something that I've always thought about and actually had some trouble with, and that's, putting together the right team, at the beginning, or
Mm.
even as you're growing the business, recruiting and identifying and recruiting and hiring, right? And finding the right people, to partner with and to
Mm.
work with, and to help build the company is. It sounds so simple and it's so difficult.
Well, and especially when you're young, it's easier when you're older and you have all the experience, but then you find yourself running out of time. That's my experience. Today, time
I
is
would,
more.
well, I would disagree. I don't think it's any easier, even with experience, Martin. I think it's just, you have shortcuts, right, to help you, vet the person, and you take a different approach in doing that than you do when you're young. There's some very successful teams of, college roommates, and, hey, we lived in the dorm together and we started, a company in our dorm room and we built it into a, multi-million billion dollar enterprise, right? It's unusual, but, it happens, right? Um,
Mhm.
Yeah, if I may, this is Michael here. I think there's such a broad continuum on product, price, place, promotion. So I can think of examples over the last 50 years of my career where if it was a new S curve, Martin, to your favorite expression. And there are some businesses that are fantastic that don't take a lot of sweat equity or labor to get rolling. In other words, if you have the 4 Ps of marketing correct and your product is truly a game changer, I can think of certain businesses and companies where I was a VP, gas seals at John Crane, for example. That thing grew to $100 million almost by itself. People just kept coming, OEMs and end users in the compressor industry and pipelines in Canada and so forth. And the product sold for $100,000 for a pair of gas seals. And I think Rich from Honeywell at gas seals, and Martin, you're a rotating equipment guy, so you might know of similar success stories. So I think the answer depends. There are some businesses you're trying to invent a new coat hanger, and there's 20 other competitors with new coat hangers every year. You're going to be struggling. And even your mosquito trap, Martin, if you think back of all the innovation that we've talked about for 5 years, I think there's case examples. What's Tesla's PE ratio? It's about 360 right now. And yeah, the guy works hard, but he has the right ingredients and the stock has gone crazy. I mean, how many stocks have a PE ratio of 300, you know?
Yeah.
So he gets all the
PE
money he
meaning,
wants.
meaning a profit per earning.
PE ratio is price of the stock
A
divided by
price
its
of,
earnings
for,
per share.
by its earnings.
PE
Okay.
ratio, yeah. So Baxter in healthcare used to be 40 or 50, which was really strong. And they were
Yes.
growing like crazy, yeah. So, Dr. Graham invented kidney dialysis after all. So there are examples where PE ratios for Apple have been over 200 at times. But
Okay.
again, Tesla is 360 yesterday. I checked it out. So that's the market trading on fear and greed, and everyone's greedy buying Tesla's stock because in the last 5 years it's really taken off. 10 years ago, Tesla was trading at like $30 a share, and now it's in the, what is it, 400 or so, Rich?
Yeah, but I was in Denver in 2012, and I went to a Tesla showroom, and I thought, man, I got to buy stock in this company. And it was, at that time, it was $32 a share, which was really pretty pricey considering that they were, still, they had no margins at that time at all. And 10 years ago, they were, I don't know what the price point was as far as the stock, but easy enough to look at the history. But it was well over 100, 10 years ago for sure. I mean, that stock has done tremendous. But now
there were two peaks, Rich. If you look at their 10-year or 20-year history, you'll see two peaks. And I think one peak was 6 or 7 years ago, and then it slid down to about $130 or $150 a share. But the latest peak is just in the last 14 months or so. So
yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think the other thing that is driving it today, right now, is that there's a lot of speculation on the street about, basically Tesla and SpaceX, coming together, right? So there's people that are sort of betting on that amalgamation of the companies all into be rolled up into one. So I think that's also part of that price frenzy. Plus, they're going, SpaceX is going public today.
With 4% of the stock versus your average 12%. So there'll be a supply problem, which then later on will create a pump and dump as the shareholders themselves are able to sell. There's only 4% going public today. Only 4% of the stock is hitting the market today. Typically, it would require 12%.
Well, your 4% number is just for the general public.
Right. Only 4% is going to the public market.
Yeah, yeah. But, well, let me rephrase that. Going to individual investors versus institutions. Because the primary buyers for SpaceX are, the past investors, and, they have restrictions on being able to dump the stock, as far as timing, after initial public offering.
How did we get here in the first place, people? Because
Well,
we're-
I think Martin, if I may, we got into this because 10 or 20 minutes ago, everyone was talking about how much work do you have to do on weekends. And I applaud entrepreneurs and startups who do it all
yes,
by blood, sweat, and tears. But I just wanted to point out that in my experience in 50 years of all kinds of new business development work, it's a continuum out there where there are examples of new S curves and the leading competitors like the BCG matrix. They jump on the star immediately. And I think Elon Musk did the same thing with his three businesses, His Hyperloop, you don't hear too much about, but I think just like Bruce Henderson's BCG matrix, everyone would like to be a star. And if you're truly in a business that's destined to be high market share and high growth, you don't have to put in the blood, sweat, and tears that someone perhaps working on a current S curve that's in the growth stage. But if you're on
okay,
a totally new S curve, I think is a lot easier. It takes less work to become a success. As long as you've got your 4 P's of marketing right and your actions and strategies are taken to win and hold customers and beat and neutralize competitors. Those are the keys. How do you do with customers, and you do better than competitors? You do all that right,
okay,
and your work week can be a lot shorter than the guy who's sweating bullets.
okay. Michael, you have said this the second time today, the 4 pieces of marketing. What are the 4 pieces of marketing?
Product, price, place, and promotion.
4 P's of marketing.
And product can be technology or service. It's not
Yes,
something you necessarily buy in a hardware store, Martin. It's your offering to the customer, right?
yes,
And price, we talked about a couple years ago. There's 50 different theories on all kinds of pricing. Crazy people out there. Place is like if you need a loaf of bread,
and
you can get it at the grocery store.
we even had yeah. I forgot we even had someone who had a competition for the right pricing, right? The simulation game.
Oh,
I was one.
there's so many theories. Like if you're selling a house and it's unique, there's a theory called reservation price. You can set your price high unless you need to sell it tomorrow. I mean, the timeline of what you do with pricing, it, kids take it in MBA school, Martin. It's you can Google it, and the expert you had on our panel years back, it's like belly buttons and rear ends. Everyone has one, and everyone has an opinion about how to price stuff. If you if if you want high profit, you do what's called skim pricing. If you've got a new S curve, the theory is you want to set the price really high, and you want to skim. It's
Yes, yes,
called. Your profit is enormous, and you chase the learning curve. So as competition comes on, or your product moves up the S curve to eventual commodity status, at some point you're selling flour or sugar, and it's basically a cost plus business. But early on, I mean, the idea price is downwardly mobile. It's not upwardly mobile. So when you got a new iPhone, of course you try to get $1,200 like the latest iPhone 17 or so. But then you chase the experience curve. So those theories of pricing are taught in business schools for the last 75 years.
We got an expert in my community, the startup ecosystem over here, that's all he does. He does pricing. Like that's his entire role is just pricing. And something that he would come and say is like tokenization is nickel and diming your customer. Because if you found the right price for that, you would find a customer that would be willing to pay the premium where you have some kind of subscription where you're not nickel and diming them. And the value would be so high that you'd lose a bunch of other people, but it would make up for it in the overall pricing.
Yeah.
Well, there's one that I've used with clients, guys. It's called the theater owner's paradox. So the accountant says, Martin, you've got 30% of your seats empty. Go out and lower the price and bring people in off of Broadway to come to the theater in the last 10 minutes before the curtain goes up. So then the marketer comes along and says, yeah, but Martin, guess what? If you do that tomorrow night, they're all going to be waiting by the ticket box for the price to go down 10 minutes before curtain time. That's called the theater owner's paradox. Do you chase the last marginal dollar profit and fill every seat? And I think airlines
Okay.
go through the same choice. Yeah. It's
I've got the same exact paradox when I do this for Airbnb. So I occasionally, to make some extra money for my startup, I Airbnb out some bedrooms. And here's what I've learned. I put it $15 higher than everyone else in the market. One, because if you're scraping the bottom of the,
you're skimming.
well, here's how it works. If I do that, what happens is I do not get someone that wants to book the vacation 4 months in advance. And they book it for 1-2 days. And then what actually occurs is like the week before, I get someone that books 3 weeks out at a time because they're there for a job interview or changing housing. So I get the entire 3-week block booked at the higher price versus then only having, onesie, twosie days at lower prices.
The same applies to a restaurant owner. He could set his menu price depending on season or time of day and so forth. But is it the best way to run a restaurant to fill every table every night and have people waiting at the door? Or is it better to charge higher prices and only fill 80% of your tables, but you're making higher profit on every dinner plate? There's no easy answer to that.
Yeah,
Both
but
schools of thought are.
when I look at it, I find Joe's explanation the most convincing one so far for the right pricing. Depends on, interesting to find out the theory for that one. But yeah, sure. But I can believe that you don't want 1 or 2 days guys staying there, but you want the ones with the big ticket because it's less work, right? The same amount to set up and send them away.
Less work, better customers. Oh my God, they are better customers. The onesie twosies that are 4 months out are so cheap that they end up likely possibly damaging your property. Whereas the ones that show up for 3 weeks at a time, significantly more respectful.
Yes.
Okay, guys, why do you have first class on airplanes? Same theory. You can't put as many seats per row and so forth. But you don't want to be Southwest or Spirit Airlines that has everyone in a cattle car and coach. I mean, how many first class seats should Lufthansa put on a flight, Martin? That's a tough question. It's better to pack them in like sardines, right? But they don't want to ruin their image.
Yeah, maybe to a degree that Singapore Airlines has airplanes with only business class seats.
Well, and some of them have sleepers now, right, Martin? Not just Singapore, but airlines in the Mideast, you can get on a long flight and you can get a bed.
Michael, but so we have of the 4 Ps, we have 2: the product, which can be service or something that falls on your foot, and the price. And the third one would be timing, right? You said something.
Okay, the last 2 Ps in the time we've got left, Martin, are place and promotion. So place would be you're selling electric motors, and you better have one on stock at W.W. Grainger, because when the guy comes in and he needs a motor for his chicken coop fan, you better have it. When you go for a loaf of bread, you're not going to sit there and pre-order it, So, and then promotion, of course, the advertising agencies in New York and in Chicago on Michigan Avenue make a killing. That's your TV commercials and your internet pop-ups that drive us nuts. So those are the 4 Ps, Martin, and they're in every marketing textbook that kids take in business school.
Place also refers to channel. So,
yeah, like I said, Rich, if you're a motor distributor, you could be a distributor channel, but you better have one on the shelf within 100 miles of the customer. He's not going to wait 3 days if his motor just went out on his pulp and
Unless
paper.
that's one of the things that makes you valuable is that you're a made to order product.
Well, and then there's shelf life, Joe. If you're a supermarket owner, there's a tough decision. Your fish is going to go bad in 10 days. What price do you put it out there, and how much salmon do you stock on a Friday night?
Or if you're a made-to-order product, you don't want product on your shelf that isn't turning because you end up getting taxed for it, at least here.
If you're a Chinese guy making custom suits, you're not going to have any on the shelf. Martin goes to China and he gets his suit for a third of the price of what he pays in Singapore.
I've got one product that it's a PID loop, since we were talking about proportional integral derivative control loops before. The simplest version has 4,000 variations. There are variations in there that have probably never even been built. Doesn't mean that you can't order them.
Yeah, but now back
Anyway,
to the.
Martin, did we answer your question, Martin? Do you understand
Yes,
the 4
yes,
Ps
yes.
now?
I like it because it never appears to me that I believe, yes, you can put the 4 Ps like that, but ultimately the problems in the companies cannot be solved by answering those. Yes, it may be that you need to have those 4 components in place, but the problem is if the company doesn't run, what
Well,
dials can you turn in
Martin,
order to make it run? And the 4 Ps.
message, the message goes like this, Martin. If you get your 4 Ps of marketing correct, the best sales call is the one that you not have to make, because a sales call is pure cost. It's the GS&A of the business. It's the general selling and administrative overhead. If you get your 4 Ps of marketing correct, the customers will beat a path to your door. I think iPhone is a great example. There's really not too many TV ads for iPhones. They sell themselves. He's got the 4 Ps of marketing perfect. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I can tell you from what I see that none of the businesses that I see could be helped by telling them what the 4 Ps are. That's why I'm asking for that, because it's never something that I find that a company usually has 3 bottlenecks, possible bottlenecks. The first one is the generating the traffic to your store, whatever that is, maybe online or even on site. And then the customers that come into the store, convince them that they don't leave the store without having bought something. And the third problem is always how to fulfill that. Do you have the operations ready to, once you have done the traffic right and the conversion to make them buyers, can you deliver and deliver such that they come back and that the problem is solved? So these are the 3 bottlenecks that I know, and none of it is captured in the 4 Ps.
Well,
Why is
Martin,
this so?
traffic comes from having the correct product and offering and having the correct promotion. Just 2 of the Ps can build your traffic, and it might take more of your advertising budget, or you have to sharpen up the quality on your product. But I'd go back to the basics. So there could be a marketing manager who's frustrated because he doesn't have enough traffic. If he's got his marketing correct, the traffic will come. He doesn't have the right mix of product and promotion or even price.
And it doesn't even have to be a marketing manager. It could be a founder that's trying to get the product off the ground.
On the operations side, Martin, if the VP of operations can't get the product out the door with the correct quality and a correct corrugated box and so forth, it's the operations guy that should be fired, not the marketing guy or the CEO. So the fulfillment is the operations responsibility and the people in the production managers of production, right?
Sure. Again, the companies that I work for, where I have insight into problems, it wouldn't help. The 4 Ps wouldn't help. It's only for explaining success. But in order to turn a company that does not make profit into one that makes profit, the 4 Ps don't help. But what helps is to find out, are there enough people asking? And there are several ways of bringing them into the shop. And then the next one is, do you have enough people in asking, but they all walk out of the shop without having bought anything? Then that's a different problem. And it is different from, I mean, generating the leads and converting them into sales. That's two different jobs. And ultimately, the operations is mostly, I would say, working, but sometimes also not. And it to my opinion, it helps more to split it into this 3-point view than a 4P view, because it's more practical if you want to improve your company. At least this is what I found for myself. So currently, what my business is, bottleneck is we don't have enough traffic. We could have
Now,
more.
since you don't have enough traffic, that doesn't mean that you're going to lower your price yet, because you haven't found the
Of course
product
not.
market fit, right? Because if you
Yes.
start lowering your price now in order to find product market fit, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot for what you could do for pricing.
Martin,
course.
there's
So
another thing that's important about marketing. Marketing is the company. And there's a big difference between sales, for example, and marketing. So marketing is the company. As an example, if you locate a restaurant in a certain place in Munich, okay, the premise is when people walk in, they are hungry. If you've got everything in order in your restaurant, the tables are clean, the menu's nice, the price is right, they're not going to turn around and walk out. They're there because they're hungry. Same thing with a supermarket. You don't go to the supermarket and come out with an empty bag. You usually go and you usually walk out buying something, right? So the traffic is there if you've got your place correct. If your restaurant is located where there's people who are hungry, they're going to come in. So the restaurant is the company. The marketing is again the 4 P's of marketing. And again, your traffic will be there if you've got the correct product at the correct price. That the place you better locate your restaurant to where there's at least people who are out looking to go to dinner. So these are the very basics, but I often get the question over decades, Michael, what's the difference between marketing and sales? It's real simple. The best sales call is the one that doesn't have to be made. The restaurant owner doesn't have to go out there dressed like a clown at a car wash to get people to come in. They're already hungry. And if there's cars in the parking lot, or better yet, a queuing of people waiting because the food is so good, your traffic is going to be solved because you've got the correct marketing mix. It's called marketing mix, or the 4 P's. So marketing is the company, whether you're making auto parts or fighter aircraft, or you're doing services to rewind electric motors in Munich. Marketing is the company. And it's a big difference between sales and marketing. And again, the best sales call is the one that never has to be made. If you get your marketing correct, the customers, the supply and demand are going to be at the sweet spot. Your price is correct. And the economists will tell you supply and demand crisscross at where the transactions take place. So
Again,
Now,
these are
we've talked about
very basic concepts, Martin.
we've talked about R&D sometimes owning marketing in certain companies. It might have been almost a year back.
Well, Joe, there's a good example, and I wrote to Martin about it. Mercedes and engineering ran the company back in the 80s, and there was a platform called the 124. But then the accountants and the CFO got involved, and their quality went down the tubes. And I sent to you and Rich, Martin, the sales in the auto industry by country, and it shows China taking off in the last 3 or 4 years, and it shows Germany taking a nosedive. But again, the classic, I think I wrote to you, Martin, you could take the 5 German car companies, and as a whole, they're not as competitive as they were 5 or 10 years ago. And their product has suffered, and the Chinese are doing a better job. So I sent you the curves.
Yes. Again, all what I want to say is, yes, I can see that the 4 Ps can explain a success in retrospective, but they cannot help a company to become successful.
Come on in.
That's what I say. And if you want to address a problem, then you need to identify it first. And you cannot use a retrospective method to help a company to be better. And but the method that I like better is to split up, to take a bakery, a simple bakery. A bakery, the only marketing that the bakery can do is having a shopping window, right? A display window. And if a lot of people walk into the shop and they walk out without having bought anything, then very likely there's something wrong with the display window. And if a lot of people walk in and they don't buy, a second option would be that something in the shop is wrong that doesn't convince them to buy the bread there, but they go somewhere else. And if there's nobody coming in, nobody coming back, then very likely there's something wrong with the operations because they were not happy with the product that they bought. Otherwise, they would come back probably. So I find that this simple structure is much better for explaining where a company has a problem. And pricing is only one part of the conversion of the sales. Because of course you can sell more for a lower price, but that doesn't mean that you're better off seen for the entire company. It may also be that a higher price makes you worse off, as we have seen with Joe's Airbnb example, which is a very good one. I really like that one.
It's anecdotal and it really works that I put the higher price up. And everyone that ever runs an Airbnb, that's what I tell them to do too, because otherwise they'll have more damage to their property if they scrape the bottom of the barrel.
Okay. No.
Something that's sitting with me is that the word of mouth ends up kind of being the best promotion. Because it's much like you don't have to do the promotion where people are coming to you for the solution. So that shows that you have the product market fit when word of mouth really is the only thing that's needed.
Yeah, exactly.
And you shouldn't be marketing something that's not profitable. So when you're first trying to get a product off the market or product onto the market, I'm almost at the point where like I wouldn't market it until the word of mouth is working. Now I feel stupid because I don't have any customers right now at the same time.
Word of mouth being one of those network effects, right? That you say people come back because they're so happy, then they tell it others that it's a good offer.
Well, Martin, in a way, Joe's Airbnb and your bakery, I think are identical in the sense that you don't want to have a commodity. And people come to a bakery because maybe their grandmother said it was a good place to buy birthday cakes and bread. So to me, a bakery is kind of it's a longer term satisfaction of customers as families. So, when I think of the bakeries in the neighborhoods when I grew up as a kid, it was always word of mouth. And you don't go, my family didn't get in a car and go 10 miles to a better bakery. We might have gone 10 miles to go to a better restaurant. And people might go 200 miles farther to stay in one of Joe's B&Bs. So I think they're similar. And I think, again, they come down to, people don't go to buy their bread in Germany to a grocery store. They go out, and the times I've walked the streets in Germany in small towns, everyone's got their loaf of bread. In France, the same thing. Everyone's got to get their bread. And where they get it at a walk-in bakery. Everyone's got to have their bread in the morning in Europe.
I mean, maybe I've used the wrong example. Bakery is really a commodity, but let's say, I don't know, what would not be a commodity where you accept the example? Is it?
Oh,
I don't know.
I beg to differ, Martin. The Polish bakeries, when we grew up on Punchki Day, you'd go to your certain place for your Punchkis. So bakeries, you're not just going to go to a grocery store and get a birthday cake for your son or daughter. You're going to go to a nice corner bakery in Munich, and it's good. It's not. I don't think it's a commodity. I think bakeries are all about quality and reputation and families and all that.
No, I mean, just what I've already seen is that there are shops, real shops, retail shops, and the display window outside doesn't really reflect what they're selling. And then they're wondering because many people come in and they all walk out without having bought anything. That's for me a classic example where the traffic generation doesn't work. No,
Well,
the traffic generation does work.
Every bakery puts their products in the window, Martin. That's customary. It's just like nail salons or beauty salons don't have to put their photographs in the windows, but bakeries they definitely want the people to be drawn in, just like the smell of popcorn at a movie theater. There's certain parts of the place of of the 4 Ps of marketing.
Ah.
A place for a bakery has to be a place that has a big glass window and all the cakes and donuts are on display in the window. That's what brings people in.
Every single bakery that I can think I've gone to in the last year didn't have a single product in the window. Now, that doesn't mean that once you walked in the store, you didn't have a display case, but none of them had a window display.
Well,
Not
I'm,
one.
I'm twice your age, Joe, so I'm going back to the way bakeries used to be, and there's still bakeries in towns and suburbs of Chicago, or even in the neighborhoods in big cities. In New York, for example, a deli, they'll have things in the window. They might have the pastrami, they'll have the raw meat. You know, delis. I mean, not only do they put bakery goods in the window, they put everything. They put, they hang sausages and all that. Martin, you know that. And people who
No.
go to specialty food establishments, not to sit down like a restaurant, but specialty stores to buy produce, or specialty candy stores and so forth. You gotta have a showplace that kind of looks like the candy counter in a movie theater.
Okay, then let's put it to a more modern setup, a landing page for a product. You need to measure, number one, the traffic that comes to your landing page, and you also need to measure what is the conversion rate from the landing page to buying a product. It's maybe more how to say, more equivalent to that 3 sites model. If nobody
take Amazon, Martin. Amazon, there's millions of SKUs, there's millions of vendors, and Bezos's magic was the landing page, as you're calling it, is Amazon.com. Bingo.
Yes. No,
Clicks,
but it's
not
not a landing
bricks.
page.
Yeah, there's
That's
no bricks. Bezos says no bricks. It's all clicks.
No, there's a landing page, for example, if you, I don't know, we had a customer who was selling melatonin, which is a sleeping pill that works like on a human hormone basis and not on something synthetic. And so the first thing is get people to that landing page. And how do you do that? There are several ways, many ways actually. But if nobody is entering the landing page, then something is wrong with your marketing for that. And if you have 1,000 people on that landing page and you can count the number of people that are on the landing page and nobody buys, then something is wrong, either with the landing page because it doesn't sell, or the product that you have promised in the marketing is not there. So it doesn't fulfill that. And another problem is when all those buyers buy and they never get the product delivered, for example, or they get the wrong product delivered, or the product doesn't. So again, your 4 Ps is retrospective, and they can help to explain why a certain company was successful with a landing page and a product that is sold electronically, but they don't help to design the company such that it will be successful. That's all what I want
Martin,
to say.
are you saying learning page or landing page?
Landing page.
With my German
Okay,
accent.
well, okay. So Best Buy, if you need a computer, I did this many times. You try to call Best Buy, they don't answer the phone. They refer you with a recording to their website. If you need an iPhone and you go to Best Buy, you can go in person and they'll want you. But
No,
their
I'm not talking
landing
about
page,
a shop.
their landing page is like Amazon.com. Everyone in
No.
electronics in the US jump
That's
on
not a
Best
land,
Buy.
that's not what a landing page is, Michael. A
Well,
landing page is a totally different concept than the home page of a website.
So
we don't have
educate
time
me.
to.
Tell us, Rich, what is it?
Well,
Give me
in
an example.
short, a landing
Yes.
page is a very brief introductory page for a particular new product or service or what have you, right? So a person can click on a QR code or just put in the address into the browser, and it takes them directly to that particular product. It doesn't take them to, having to go search for it at a homepage of Amazon, right?
Oh, I see. I see.
It's a shortcut tool to get you to that specific item.
I'll give you an
And
example. Is www.martin-schweiger.com. That's my landing page for the entrepreneur support program for the small and
Hey,
medium-sized
Martin.
enterprises in Germany. Yes.
Martin, one of the things I wanted to mention to you is that the the 4Ps has been around forever. I mean, if you just Google that, you'll find all sorts of
Yes.
case studies and information on that. But the
Yes.
newer version of the 4Ps is Alexander Osterwild's.
Yes. It's the business model.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
That
Yes. Yes.
accounts for the 4Ps, and it even dissects the 4Ps into, value proposition, channel,
Yes.
delivery, etc. Right. So that's
Yeah.
the revised version, if you would, the updated version, the new version of 4Ps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we have had that, right, with the new meets the and now I forgot what was the title. The new and the now is navigated by the Osterwalder model. So the question is it new or is it now? And the stepping from new to now is if you change the at least 2 of the 7 components or 9 components of the Osterwalder business canvas, then you are in the new, and then you need to apply new techniques. But I mean, let's continue next week. Let's talk about landing pages. That's really interesting. It leads to a new thing. I want to stop here. We are 2 minutes over time. Thank you all for attending, and see you again next week. And thank you and goodbye. Bye bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Good
Thank
stuff,
you.
guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.